most important thing that you need to know about taking a trip on Amtrak is how to read a timetable. Timetables have been around for years because they were used in freight operations and they're used in passenger operations. Generally speaking, for the most part, they're only used in passenger operations today. There are some railroads who still do scheduled trains, but not all of their trains are scheduled and operate on a timetable. Now, why did they have a timetable? They had a timetable so that the various trains would know where they were, when they were expected to be there, what time it was, and what other trains they were expected to meet. Because back in the 1800s and the early 1900s, they didn't have a lot of communications to talk to each other. They didn't have radios. They did have trackside telephones, but they weren't talking directly from train to train. They were having to go through a third party. So they used a timetable to control the movements of the trains. And then these could be modified by general orders or special orders, track bulletins, and other things that the railroads use. You see before you a copy of a timetable. Now, I selected this one. The name of the train is the Cardinal. Why did I select this one? Because it runs very closely to the Summit Bechtel Reserve. It has stops at Prince, West Virginia, which is east of here, and it has stops at Thurman. It's a flag stop at Thurman, West Virginia. There's actually a restored depot there at Thurman, operated by the National Park Service. You may get an opportunity while you're here to go see it. Prince, West Virginia is a normal stop. It is a manned station. You can buy tickets there. At Thurman, you can't. Okay, let's look at this timetable. What does it tell us? Well, across the top you see the name, the train name. Then you see the train number. Then you see when it runs. Departs New York City, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, train 51. Train come across, train 50, departs Chicago at Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now notice what I just did. When I read this column, I read down. When I switched over to this column, you read up. Rather than have two columns repeating the same information and taking up a lot of space, you're stopping at the same place. For example, Huntington, West Virginia, you're just stopping at different times depending on which way you were going, where you started and where you were going. Looking across, we can see the train leaves at this time in the morning from New York and arrives in Chicago at 10:05 a.m., the A for a.m., P for p.m., the next day, having traveled a distance of 1,147 miles. Each stop has a mileage marker by it telling you what's there. It also tells you what's available in that area. There may be special considerations for some of the stops. Some of the stops will have R's, and R means stops only to receive passengers. It's not going to pick up anybody, it's just going to stop to let somebody off. Other stops you may see cross flags on it, like here, Alderson, West Virginia. It's a flag stop. The train will not stop unless there's somebody there to be picked up. So what you do is you start out here at New York and you read down. And it'll tell you when you're going to be at each station, what the distance is, and then it will tell you where the next station is. And if you wanted to go from Chicago back to New York, you would start here at Chicago at 5:45 p.m. and you would go up. And you would arrive at New York City at 9:56 p.m. the next day. Now you notice a lot of symbols on these. You have dots, you have a wheelchair, you have forks, you have other things, you have handicap signals. If you look over here, you can tell what these are. As I said, A is for AM, N is for noon, P is for standard time, PM. Let me just say something about standard time. Railroads operate on the same time no matter where they are. That's to make sure that everybody's reading on the same story. In fact, the railroads were instrumental in getting this country to adopt standard time, because prior to that, if you were in the state of Texas, for example, and you were going from one city to another, each city, each town had its own time. So it may be a difference of 15 minutes, an hour, or more. But that's no way to run a railroad, particularly when you have only one set of tracks and you want to run trains both ways. So the railroads developed in a country-adopted standard time back in the 1880s. And we divide the country into 4 time zones: Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. Okay, going ahead on with your other symbols on here. I told you one that said stops only to receive. There's another one that indicates stops only to discharge. Central time, Eastern time, that's where the 2 cities are that this train serves, Chicago and New York. A bus stop, a flag stop, quick self-serve ticketing kiosk, not manned, unstaffed station, staff station, handicap accessible, station wheelchair accessible. Not all station facilities are accessible. Here's the service that's available on a Cardinal. You can have coaches, reservations are required, sleeping cars, you have dining, you have checked baggage at select stations. If not checked, you have to keep the luggage with you. And on Sundays, train 51 operates to 10 minutes later at this station. That's an indication of what's going on. Notice this little wording: smoking is prohibited. Here's an interesting comment that the Huntington Railroad Historical Society will provide historical and sightseeing commentary on select Cardinal trips eastbound from Charleston, West Virginia to Clifton Forge, Virginia. That's because it's going through historical area. You're right in the center of that here where the Bechtel Reserve is located, or Summit is located. Okay, one of the requirements that you have to gain the Railroad Merit Badge is to plan a trip in excess of at least 500 miles. So you could use this timetable to plan a trip of leaving New York at 6:45 in the morning. Where do you get to 500 miles? Well, 517, you're down here at Hinton, Virginia. So you could plan this trip, and would you want to have a sleeping car? Probably not. Probably not, because you're leaving at 6:45 in the morning, you're arriving at 6:03 in the evening, so you don't need a sleeping car, same day. Reversing that, you could depart Chicago, go up to where it reaches 500 miles, and figure out where you want to go. Amtrak is a major player in the railroad industry in this country. It provides a vital and needed service. It's an interesting trip. I've taken several trips on Amtrak. I've also ridden some of the railroads before Amtrak came into being. And Amtrak provides as good a service as any of those. So if you want to ride a trip, have a different view rather than sitting in the back seat of your parents' car or van, looking out the windows, schedule a trip on Amtrak sometimes. You'll enjoy it and they'll appreciate it. Thank you.